In this unit, you will be introduced to the regulatory framework for medical devices. Planning to conform with medical device regulations early in the design process will accelerate bringing a product to the market. Different regulations apply to medical devices in each different regulatory jurisdiction worldwide. This unit places emphasis on medical device regulatory requirements within the European Union and the US, which remain the two largest single markets for medical devices. To begin, it is important to clarify what is a medical device. While EU legislation provides the complete definition, we should consider a medical device to be any hardware or software product used in humans for a medical purpose, but which is not a medicinal substance or medication. So before we begin, it is important to confirm if your product is actually a medical device. Medical devices which are approved in the EU bear the CE mark to indicate that they comply with European regulations. The EU is currently transitioning to a new regulatory framework which will apply to all devices from May 2020. These regulations, referred to as EU 2017/745 for medical devices and 2017/746 for in vitro diagnostic devices, cover the design, manufacture, distribution and surveillance of all devices in the EU. In the EU, the person responsible for establishing if a product is a medical device is the legal manufacturer. The legal manufacturer is named on the device label, and it is they that establish the device's intended use. The legal manufacturer is held responsible for the device, regardless of whether they have designed and manufactured the product. In order to market a medical device in the EU, the legal manufacturer is obliged to engage with a notified body. Notified bodies are private organisations which are tasked with governing compliance with medical device regulations in Europe, and, as such, they determine when a device is in compliance with the regulations or not. Regulatory oversight of medical devices is risk-based. The higher the device's risk classification, the more stringent the requirements to obtain the CE mark, and the more conformity assessment procedures will be sought by the notified body before the device may be sold. There are 4 risk classes for devices within the EU. Class 1 is for low-risk devices. Usually these are non-invasive devices such as tongue depressors or bandages, which are intended for use of under 1 hour. Class 2A is for devices that represent a low to medium risk. Many devices such as needles and surgical instruments fall into this category. Class 2B is for devices that represent a medium to high risk. Devices that pose risk due to the length of use or due to their physical location fall into this category. These include contact lenses and imaging systems. Class 3 is for the highest risk devices, and examples include implants and devices in direct contact with the heart and brain. Depending on the device's classification, the manufacturer will choose the necessary conformity assessment procedures described in the legislation. These procedures will describe the product design as well as the quality system and manufacturing process used to produce it consistently. Although the most frequently applied procedures are quality system-based, the manufacturer may choose to apply other options as set out in the regulations. The manufacturer prepares a technical file which is a compilation of documents describing how the device conforms with the essential requirements of the regulations. It includes the general description of the device, design output documents like specifications and drawings, risk analysis of the design and relevant manufacturing processes, the clinical evaluation report, the manufacturing methods envisaged for routine production, and a description of the technical solutions to fulfill the essential requirements, including material selection, biocompatibility, electrical safety, electromagnetic compatibility, sterilisation, packaging, and labelling. The clinical evaluation report is a critical requirement of the technical file and is necessary for all devices regardless of the risk classification. While clinical evaluation may be based on a literature review and comparative analysis with other products already on the market, this is only acceptable when technical, biological and clinical equivalence to an existing device can be demonstrated. When existing literature and data are found to be insufficient to support conformity of the new device with the regulatory requirements, new clinical data must be generated, usually through a clinical investigation with the new device. Clinical investigations are expected for novel or innovative devices, high-risk devices, or any other device where current clinical experience is not sufficient. Clinical investigations for CE marking follow the good clinical practice requirements set out in the international standard ISO 14155, and compliance with this standard is determined by the national competent authorities as well as ethics committees or institutional review boards from the healthcare centres where the investigations will be performed. In addition to the technical file, the manufacturer must demonstrate a quality management system which can consistently produce devices which fulfill these technical requirements. Quality management of medical devices is described in the international standard ISO 13485, which provides procedures for quality controls from design through to post-production. Before submitting any application for conformity assessment to a notified body, the manufacturer must compile enough information and records to show that their quality controls are working. To summarise, the process for EU device approval involves 6 steps. Define the device and its intended use. Classify the device based on its use and risks. Determine the suitable procedures for conformity assessment and implement a quality system which captures these procedures. Prepare the technical documentation, including the technical file and quality management procedures to demonstrate conformity. Present the documentation for examination by the notified body and, where necessary, register the product with a national competent authority for medical devices. And finally, implement the conformity assessment procedures and receive the certificate of conformity in order to market the device with the CE mark. Medical device regulation in the US is the job of the Centre for Devices and Radiological Health, a centre within the Federal Food and Drug Administration. The FDA classifies medical devices in 3 risk categories depending upon use and severity. Each product category has a unique code which can be used to classify your device based on existing products. For Class 1 and Class 2 devices, the usual route to market is so-called 510K pre-market clearance. This is a process where the manufacturer is required to demonstrate substantial equivalence to existing products which are already FDA approved. Substantial equivalence means that both devices have the same intended use and technological characteristics. The FDA may determine that you require preclinical or clinical investigations to demonstrate this equivalence. For Class 3 and high-risk devices, a pre-market approval, or PMA, is required. For PMA, the manufacturer must demonstrate that the device is safe and effective, supported by valid scientific evidence. The manufacturer will also be subject to FDA inspection of manufacturing facilities for quality compliance. The entire process may take between 18 and 30 months. You can find lots more information on medical device regulations online. However, this unit should enable you to classify your device in both the US and Europe, establish whether a clinical investigation will be required to market your device, and identify the essential regulatory requirements necessary to market your device.